Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to you present here, and a warm special welcome to you, Reverend Molo. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your wisdom and contribution always. And a warm welcome and greetings to the young people as we meet and gather for the third episode of Teaching Through Conversation in the last week of the Youth Month. Therefore, we honor you as our young people. We say your voice matter, and it is at time like this, hopefully, not necessarily only in the month of June, where we get to listen to your perspective, where we get to listen to your voices. But today, tonight rather, we have been honored with an opportunity to sit with you and just to hear from you as we delve in the topic unfiltered, what the church doesn't normally ask young people. So we've got you to answer that and to perhaps give us, or just give us a window view of your life. And as Reverend Molo also joins me, perhaps let's start with understanding, Reverend Molo, what is the one thing you wish that as a young person the church understood about being young before I involve our young people present here?
Good evening. Good evening. I thought we were going to start with young people. I'm here to listen to them. Your question is, what is it that I thought young people, what the church would understand about young people?
Yes, during your time.
The truth is, I didn't expect them. I just made them understand. I was one of those young people who realized that if I wait for old people to give me space in church, I'll wait forever. And therefore, I decided that I'm going to be me and just let it be. And if the church is struggling with me, it is not me who's struggling, it is them. And therefore, I'm just going to be who I am, and therefore present myself in front of them. Because I truly don't believe, I don't believe that older people have a responsibility to understand that more than we want them to, no more than we present ourselves. Because nobody has a responsibility to understand me. I've got the responsibility to share who I am, and then let them struggle with that. And part of the truth they had to learn from me is that I'm a complex human being. I'm going to make mistakes. It's going to be messy for me to believe in God and live my life. And sometimes they struggle with that, but that's what it was.
Indeed. So I've got young people here, and I would like to hear from you. Often, as the church, the mistake that we make as elders is that we speak to you instead of speaking with you. Do you get that? Yeah. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. So what is the one thing that you wish we understood about being young? Because I was once young, but then I'm a different generation to you. Your challenges of today are definitely not what I was faced with. You guys are faced with so many things, including mental health, perhaps something that I went through that I did not have a label for. What is the one thing that you wish, especially as your ministers, we understood about being young?
For it would be that one size does not fit all, and what do I mean by that? I mean, there's rules within each and every organization, it being at school, at church, at work, but how it's been said to all of us, it's in the same, or it's the same fashion, but how she understands it, I understand it might be different. The biggest thing that I think a lot of parents have not done either in homes or in churches, but particularly in church, now we talk about church, is are you following? Are you understanding? Not this and that has been said as a rule or as an obligation. And because we all agreed in one accord, then obviously whoever that's leading or laying out that rule would assume or think, let's not use the word assumption, rather think that we indeed are understanding the same pattern, only to find out that I understood it to a certain level. And then when certain things now needs to be carried out of that understanding or that practice, you know, there would be where I would fall or she will fall and she would get it right. And obviously it's gonna now start looking like these ones are the left-handed of the church and this one is the right-handed of the church. So for me it's, are you following? Are you understanding what we have said to you?
Anyone else? Thank you, Offensive. Would you like to add?
The time
Okay.
is now.
Tell me, you are a member of the church. Do you often feel that you can fully be yourself in the church or in wherever that you get to congregate? Why? If it's yes, and why not? Do we give you that opportunity to be fully yourself? Have you experienced that in the church or not? Yes, Lita.
I'm gonna have to think about if I agree or if I don't agree, but I'll just say that I feel like I'm only getting the opportunity now to be myself at church, but when I grew up, I think it was that thing things would be selected over this is for grown-ups. You can't do a certain thing because grown-ups are the ones that are supposed to do that. You know, things were given, I guess, a category. You know, kids are kids and things for adults are things for adults. But I think for now, I can say that the church is, you know, giving us a chance.
Is welcome.
Yes.
Yes, Anneli.
Can I say no? Because how can I put this? It's put it towards, but I'm not. I feel like we have to portray like a certain image to fit the church, because I'll stand here and say, I have mental issues. I take antidepressants. That's why I'm always so happy. And when I don't take them, you know, it becomes a lot. But on that day, it will be seen as, ooh, lots of highs, boys, wada, wada, wada. So I feel like at church, we always have to portray this perfect image. Yes, they say come as you are. Actually, the Bible says come as you are. And we preach come as you are. But behind closed doors, I'll come as I am. But there'll be a group of Christians that will be gossiping about me. It's, oh my gosh, I can't believe she told us that she's going through this. So I can't say I am fully myself. I feel like I have this personality that is just for church. And I have Anele outside. Yes.
Reverend Molo, you're not in the church space. Like,
I'm in the church space.
no, I mean, okay, that's not what I'm trying to do. Anyway, would you say, as ministers, are we looking for a polished young person, the one who is sorted, the one who's justified, the one who's got everything right, the one who looks like you say? Perhaps you need to have a Sunday image and then during the week image. Are we only looking for that Sunday image, or God has called us to minister to a whole sum, the wholeness of an individual?
Let me just, I'll come to your question as I conclude this point. The first thing is that the church, beyond the youth in question, the church likes to be prim and proper as an attitude. The church sells itself as this institution where it makes people behave and act good. And because it has that sense of itself, it wants to channel everybody into the space of goodness. So the church wants umama ochatileyo to behave like this, and therefore from being uno rosette to being ntombi yomanyano to being umama, you are being channeled into how you must be this well-behaved, well-meaning human being. Because I guess that's our selling point as a church. Our selling point is we are not like those who are outside of the church. And the only way we can prove that is when everybody behaves prim and proper. That also speaks into openness for things. For a long time, I met the church wearing a trouser was a problem because it didn't reflect you respect. For a long time in the Methodist church, if you come, especially as a woman, to Holy Communion without anything in your head, there's a problem because it creates that you don't care. So there is a general fundamental problem about us trying to be a well-behaved group of people. That finds it difficult for young people because young people do not fit well into being straitjacketed. Young people rebel about being put into one narrow path that they must follow. They will rebel by non-attendance. They will rebel by non-association with some of those things. They will rebel by being bored. They come here to church and they sit around there and they look and think to themselves, and then they can't wait to leave the church. So the church then struggles with keeping young people interested in the work we do. And sometimes we find the guilt, guilt, but if we're honest with ourselves, the guilt is a mere 10% of young people in the church. The majority of young people don't go there. Because why? We like in the uniform. But for goodness sake, I do want to show off my hair because I was in a salon. I do want to show off my nails because I spend money on them. And therefore, it attracts a certain number of people. I don't want to go to the young women's manana, which is another conversation for another day. So answering your question, therefore, is the greatest gift that the church can offer to young people is a gift that says there's an openness to experiment how you can become the best human being you can be. To create that space, to say, you know what, here we can experiment. And like all experimentation room, it gets messy. Because in an experiment, the chemicals might not meet the same way. And sometimes there's an explosion. You put the wrong chemicals in the wrong place and boom, there's an explosion. Sometimes there's a fire in the house because it's an experimentation place. And I think the church does not have the necessary patience to allow young people to experiment and live with the consequences of experimenting. And because of that, we don't produce well-formed human beings. We produce well-structured human beings who feel the church structure suffocates and doesn't allow them to be who they are. And sometimes because young people are young people, and they're going to go left. Do you have enough love to love them enough for them to come back when they've gone left? So how can we allow young people to experiment? And sometimes they'll experiment with things that you look at. Some silly little joke where I once asked Bandabadala to support who was guilt on the Good Friday thing. So they are standing there doing all the stuff and they have this all then. One heart, one way, one heart, whatever. Umutle. No, at that time. Umutle, umubi.
Oh, it's the opposite.
Yeah, that was umubi. So these old people are sitting there listening to this whole thing of being told about them. and how they can be disconnected to that, into that space. And what I ask young people to do in my space is to say to young people, try also to bridge. Because when you want to change everything to be as young as you are, and part of that creates a sense you're not serious, create a sense that you're joking, create a chance about and therefore parents can't connect with that. So therefore there's this disjunction that happens. So how do you experiment at the same time make sure there's a bridge? Don't experiment to the point that your mom looks at you and she's lost. Because then you don't have a partner to experiment with. And when things fall apart, she's unable to work with you.
But then what's your thinking to what Reverend Molo is saying? What I'm hearing, Moruti, is that the young people somehow needs to adjust themselves to also be accommodative of us elders, that we do not get lost, we do not get disconnected, we do not even get embarrassed perhaps with how they do things in the church. In church, do you think that's the way you would like to somehow not be, or perhaps the question is, does that allow you to be fully yourself? Yes, without being disrespectful in the presence, in the sanctuary, but then do you feel that allows you to be who you are?
No.
When you have to check whether it will sit well with us as elders, or it will be well received.
I mean, if I can, okay.
No. Come, Tando. You were speaking.
Okay, for me, I don't think it does fully allow you to be truly yourself, and which is not entirely a bad thing. Just like any other institution, I feel like there are set rules that we all need to abide by, just so that, and anything that goes against that, it seems or it is regarded as something bad, right? So I feel like in the church space, yes, we want to take an active part and do certain things just like that, but I still feel like we still need to respect the space. We still need to maybe just go back to the source. Everything that we are doing, is it allowed according to the Bible? Maybe if we can go back to the source as opposed to what is Rev saying, who's Rev, maybe just going to back to that in the midst of having fun and all of that, but maybe going back to it, I think seeing my pattern up, I think. But yeah, so I just feel like we still need to be respectful, we still need to mind the way we behave, the things that we do. At the same time, we must be allowed space to express ourselves, and yeah. That's it.
Anyone else wants to add? Lilelo? Oh, yes, Katla.
We can't see.
Oh.
I'll just go that side.
Okay. I think the question that I have is then, what are the things that the church is not willing to change? Whereby I think the church, they are so rigid, like they don't want to change anything. Like for instance, Wesley Guild. Reverend Molo spoke about how like 10% of youth are in Wesley Guild. But as a guilder, I feel like 90% of people who are in guild are not youth. That's the problem I have. Is that we say that these people are youth, but they're not youth. And then the same people who are in their late 30s, early 40s, then occupy spaces like the Abo Vice, the Abo whatever in the Wesley Guild, and whatever challenges that they have and that they are presenting to the conference or wherever these conversations are, they're not challenges that I'm facing as a 23-year-old or challenges that a 19-year-old is facing. So then, this thing, people are young in heart. Unfortunately, don't agree with it and I don't like it, because like I said, whatever someone who is in their late 30s, 40s are facing is not what I'm facing. And on top of that, it's gonna sound like I have something against marriage, and I don't, I don't. But the thing is that when you are married, even if you're a 23-year-old who is married, I feel like your perspective on the world changes. Even when you have children, and you are still my age, but you have those things, your perspective changes, because now you think as a wife or as a husband, you think as a mother or as a father. And now we are in spaces like that who are with people who lived life, those kinds of lives. Whereas when we are in general meetings or whatever, I think we know who speaks in general meetings, right? And some people might feel oppressed. Not that someone is intentionally oppressing you, but in a sense that I can't voice my opinion because most of the people here agree on the same thing. So if I were to bring a fresh perspective, I'm going to be the odd one out.
Is there anything wrong by being the odd one? The question would be, what are you taking from the youth of 1976? Don't move away, Katla. The youth of 1976 who were bold enough to stand up and to say enough is enough, and took up the street of Soweto, stood against the injustices. What's stopping you from standing up and voicing your perspective from your own experience? Because you keep quiet. I often say, Reverend Molo, that evilness prevails in the church space simply because men and women are keeping quiet, and I would say young women and men are also keeping quiet. Things are not going to change as long as we keep quiet and we say we're waiting for Jesus to come down and fix everything. We are here, we are the feet and the hands of Christ. What's stopping you to stand up in a general meeting and say, I, Katleho, respectfully do not agree with 1, 2, 3, because it comes from your own worldview, because your worldview is definitely not mine. And you might just find out that there are a lot who are resonating with your view, but because have you ever sat in a meeting where you felt, I want to say this, until you get outside and you hear somebody wanted to say that, and you guys we had something in mind which is common, but you guys did not say it. Yes, Anele, yes, I'll give you. Zamukuhle.
Out.
But with Katlego and I, we speak now. But she did say, Ruti, we're talking to people who are heads of homes. And when we go to these meetings, the wives, the husbands, the mothers, the fathers group themselves and they say, when we get there, we're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I stand, we're supporting it. And I'm going to say, I elect Sister Katlego. Class! I nominate closure. That's it. And it's them.
I'm still saying.
My chat is we speak up, but if it's just her and I, and everyone else is for it, unfortunately, majority wins with how things are done. And now, and now, because we nominated Katlego to go. Katlego is a married mother, ne? In our blue uniform. She's going at the district. So Katlego is going to voice out problems for them, not for Anelo, who's 22, who's at home, who doesn't even have a cat. And then from district, she's going up. So up there, people who are representing us, the youth, are people who are young and hard.
It's not hard.
Exactly. And they don't even understand the problems that we're going through. And I don't know why Bangaye don't be no mama. There's so much space for them, but they want to they want to rule the kids because
Let's not necessarily speak about the guilt. We're talking about
but
the
all
church.
organizations.
Yes, we're talking about you being comfortable, being
Yeah.
young, and I understand you guys speak from a perspective of
Of guilt.
Oh, and then I give to Zamukushe. That's your name, right?
Yes. Good. No, good evening.
Good evening.
Rudy, I think the fact of the matter relies here. Us as youth in the church space, we are subjected to speak out, to voice out the things that we want to shape in the church or to change the church. Hence, Katlego said, people who are in the upper structure or in that body on top, there are people who are not on our age group, who don't have the same mandate that we want to change some of the things on the church. Hence, Katlego said, there are things we want to voice it out, but now because the leadership of the youth is not having the same idea or mind that we have as the youth of today. So it's kind of difficult for us to voice it out because we'll be afraid of them. Some of them, they are in the age of our parents. So if you try now to voice something out and the way you look at you, like, it's kind of like disrespecting that particular person because it's at that position. So we respect the behavior. So they try our behavior at church. Sometimes it's hindered. So we remain as kids, where else we are no longer kids, but we are the youth. So that's the problem we're having. That's my submission. Thank you.
Offense, thank you, Zamukushe. You wanted to say something? Yes, my brother. Oh, offense.
Okay, for me, I'll share my own personal journey about something like what we are currently discussing. You know, when an individual that is young and that is of difference of what the norm is, either in an organization, in church, at work, in school, you know, you are bound to be subjected by even the word hate, by even people that are closer to you, it being family, it being the same classmate, or that best friend that you thought you guys are ride or dies. And that's the truth of life. And I'll take it back to what Tando said. In life, I've had the opportunities of saying, in any way that I found myself doubting even my own thoughts, I go back here. Or not per se with the Bible, because today we can argue and say somebody wrote these words, but the Creator Himself, you know, sit there, kneel, God, give me strength. Make me numb, Mandela, make me numb, you know, Nelson, I mean, it's that type of a thing, because what I've noticed as a young person that has set an executive position in terms of employment, again, where you find yourself sitting there in your early ages and you're sitting with hardcore African men, women, elderly men that are black, that are known of, I shall follow the leader. And when you're not that type, I'm going to get you at 8 and I'm going to leave you at 5 o'clock. My father only left a Cressida automatic and not a hotel or whatever institution, you know. It's the reality of things. You've got a life beyond that, you know. But the minute you start practicing that, then you'll be subjected to that. But the caring of saying, I will not fall uniform. Sometimes, again, you need to be cautious that uniform might be the correct thing, actually. Sometimes it might be time to change, you know. So for me, that's how I look into things. As much as we kind of fell into the word Wesley Guild, but any organization, I'm sure everybody feels that way, where we are used to class we ever, continue voicing out differently. That's how the ANC overruled apartheid. That's the reality of things. Somebody had to go to the to Queen Elizabeth with the apartheid government not knowing, and somebody had to go to Angola or whatever without the apartheid government knowing. And at the end, all these things were turned upside down. So yes, we might not be saying we're going to change it upside down, but maybe the views of people might be changed in their heads. And that's how I've seen it work. And reality is, in as much as we've seen and acknowledged that, yes, saying you differ in terms of I see this in this way and I want us to try to follow it in this way causes a bit of tension. And sometimes you never know what type of tension you would trigger. Sometimes it's good tension, sometimes yes, it's going to be bad. But without testing, we never know.
My brother, please introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, Duena.
Hi.
Lina Laga Gitaru.
Hi, Tabo.
Yeah. I'm not a member of this church.
Yet.
But yeah, I wanted to speak on something Moruti said. You spoke about precepts that are in the church. Alright, that is we have certain customs that are in the church. I'm gonna speak for also my church back home, where I'm noticing a pattern where us as the youth, and I think it's something that you guys spoke about also, as bana, and not necessarily people who have a voice, who have an opinion in this space, right? And so with that being said, you come to church, and if you're not heard, first of all, you're gonna feel unappreciated and undervalued, and that's how we walk away from the church. That's how we walk away from the system, right? And so I think then we have to start thinking about how we walk this journey together. You guys as our adults, as our leaders, we're gonna hold our hands through this journey. We're gonna encourage us to partake in whatever that's happening. I heard OC also spoke about how our representatives, who are most likely out of touch with our reality, right? So how does then the church encourage us as young people to take up leadership roles, or to lead services, lead the guild that arena, lead whatever is there to lead, right? I also wanted to say then the church, the elders should have grace towards us as what we're the reason being, again, I'm gonna go back to the precepts. We have a certain mindset or perspective of how a young person should be in the church, right? Now I come to church and maybe I have my mental health issues, or I don't know, whatever the case is, whatever issue that I have. And then he gave up blackboard. Or if I make a mistake, then somehow I'm casted as, the youth are casted as so it's all in the grace. One, you guys have to acknowledge we're young people, we're bound to make mistakes, we're bound to try and break boundaries, right? So one, it's trying to understand us, but also holding our hand through this journey that we're walking, right? Saying, we understand you're young people, you can experiment with this, try to push the boundaries, and if then we push them too far, then it's on you as our elders who are holding our hands to say, come back. And I think then that's how we're gonna find ourselves back if then we are heard and we have someone who's willing to guide us through the journey.
One size does not fit all.
I think I would say that I think the church should ask the question of how is the church failing you as the youth? Like, I think we should like have meetings. I feel like the church mostly focuses on like finances, body, kind of what's that group after church? Classes, yes, like classes and stuff like that. But I feel like once we have to come back to the youth, everybody thinks, okay, when we have to like focus on the youth, it's when we're gonna do these activities where we play. Like, when are we gonna hear each other? Yeah, when are we gonna talk? Okay, now I feel like the church is not hearing us 1, 2, 3 here or 1, 2, 3 there. I feel like if we can kind of like, as the church, make that possible, I feel like everybody then would somehow feel like, okay, and if there are changes after that, yeah, I feel like you're
Then,
I don't think
yes.
when she mentions that we should have like meetings or whatever and talk about what are we not, like, what is the church not doing for us as the youth? for me, I feel like the church is not supporting the youth in like teaching them about the church. The church does not teach us about the church as youth. There are many children or youth who don't know Methodist, where Methodist comes from, how it came about, why is it even called Methodist, why do we always quote John Wesley? We don't know that. You find out once, because that's how I found out during my confirmation class. In that one class, that's when I found out how the Methodists came about. But then you forget about it because you only taught about it once. You are not taught about it. So I feel like we would be more interested if we were included in certain church stuff, because it's usually organizations who do that, and not all of us want to go in organizations to learn about the church.
Yes, Gail.
Reverend Molo, so what's coming out here is that young people want to feel valued. You want to be seen, you want to be heard. You don't only want to be put aside and then we pick you up in the month of June or in the month of September. Because to us as elders, often it comes across as you guys are rebelling, you guys are being disobedient. You know, we're asking ourselves, why are these young people not serving more? Why are they not at church more? Gandhi, we fail to understand, perhaps this is what I'm getting, especially as a minister, that perhaps we fail to ask a question, how are you? You know, I'm going to make an example with you. When Anela, this afternoon, I sent you a message. I said, Anela, I feel that you are disconnected. I feel that you are disconnected. And but then I thank God that first I said, how are you? Are you okay? I feel that you are disconnected. Because with your answer, then I'm like, God, thank you that I asked her, how is she? Instead of just assuming that perhaps she's rebelling. So, Reverend Molo, it is our responsibility as the church, which is, we are the body of Christ, but as the elders, to shape the young people of tomorrow. The church it's not the church of tomorrow, it's today's church. What role should we play as the church to shape the young people?
I'm going to ask you a question for this. I'm interested in asking this question. If I were to say to young people here, redesign the church.
What we can come up with.
Yes.
Dialogue.
Okay.
Dialogue again without any brackets. And maybe I'm falling into what I said in the beginning to say that 99% people would say there's a dialogue between a parent and a child. But the parent would look around, by the way, that's I'm thinking of this, that's why
isn't that the problem of the word dialogue? Shouldn't we say conversation?
That's a conversation. You see, I was wrong then, you're right.
No, you're not wrong.
No, actually the true meaning, you're right. It's not just dialogue, it is let's communicate without any...
How would that happen in a church life?
In a church life?
Yes.
I mean, in this church, I can tell you we are experiencing at least communication in an essence like what you said, Moriti. Before you asked Anele, you went into, before you asked me about my obligation, can you get to know how am I as an individual? And I remember the first time I attended this setup, we set up and said, before we could say one thing about church, how are you doing? So just practicing that and getting each and every one of us into a space where I am not of a normal, what's the right word, cookie cutter, I'm supposed to be sergeant and ready about this. Yeah, that's conversation.
Okay, anybody else? Because let me tell you why I'm on that, because part of the challenge of church is how we do church. We come on Sunday to worship. What would that look like for a young person? If you saw what I mean. Because we come here on church, we must focus on God, isn't it?
Yeah.
We must sing, we must hear somebody preach. If you see what I mean. But, and so therefore the first thing you are raising is church should be conversational. So that's the first point. So that's a value, that's a commitment. The question then is, how do you implement that? And I'm asking this because I'm curious. Whatever else you've seen me do in this church conversation is talking about this, coming here and then saying we're not going to preach, we're going to sit there and talk.
Definitely.
But what I'm trying to ask ourselves is, if I'm young, I'm 23, not 35, not married, not
that I am.
married people are just, and if I were to sit and say, God says to me, design this thing. I'm giving you freedom, I'm giving you everything. Design this thing called church. What would you do? Because I'm giving you a clean slate. I can't know this. But for you to say, yeah, if I were to design, what would that look like? I'm curious to hear that as part of this, because I'm going to come to move for these questions and issues that I want to answer for yourself. You can talk. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, for me, if I were to really design the church, I would make a church whereby it doesn't only focus on spirituality. Look at mental health, look at emotional well-being of somebody, look at work readiness. I would design a church whereby there are slots whereby we get to say, let me teach you interview skills. This is what, because, which goes back to what he said. We are not entirely saying, let us run the show, but help us, or rather guide us in doing this whole thing. So I would design a church whereby it will bring out a well-rounded person. Exactly, a well-rounded person. That's what I would do. And not just focus on
Thanks,
I think more or less on the same pathway.
Project for your friends that you hear.
We're more or less on the same pathway. Because, well, for me, I've been of the world. I will not deny that. Thursday to Monday, I was in the club, and I saw this is not working for me. So you know what? I went back to the drawing board. No, go back to your creator. It's okay, God. Now, church is. This is where I spend most of my time. Like every single day, I speak to the Lord. I read my Bible. So this is. I want to grow into a person who, you know what, the Lord. And now it becomes so hard when I come to church, the building, and the love that I read about in the Bible, I don't experience it here. Because as I said, I don't feel like I'm being 100% myself here. Because I have, I deal with, like personally, my mental health is like the worst, like it's deteriorating, and I feel like this past week, it was just going down.
In the name of Jesus, we are.
There was no light, there was nothing. So, if I was able to come here, and in as much as every Sunday I can go to literally anyone, and I'm known as this girl that is always happy, oh my gosh. Yo, no matter because if I come and I allow myself to feel sad, it's going to somehow, and I don't want to blame them, but I wish they created that platform for me. Are you okay? Like they touch my hand, are you okay? What's wrong? Tell me, and I'll be able to open up and tell me, no, actually, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So, more than anything, I feel like because we're going through a lot as this, I get that also as parents and elders, this is your first time living. But you guys are not youth now, like 2025, and there's a lot that we're going through now. Katlaho mentioned someone who's 22 years is married, has a house, car, baby, whatever, and I might feel like pressure, oh my gosh, I'm falling behind. So if the church offered love, because maybe I don't know what's happening at home mentally, I'm not okay, love. Like, I will always push this good love. Like we preach about it, it's in the Bible. love. Like God is love, and we're not experiencing that. Instead, we're getting judged. That's why kids don't want to come to church. Because every time I invite you, I saw them by a church. And that is the truth.
Gotcha. Okay, let's get started on the and then later, but then we take it back.
The church, how would I use the thing? I concur with what you're saying, but also including things like, okay, I don't think I would have an organizational church. I've seen how it is here in the Methodist Church, seeing that I have been here all my life, and I really do think that it disconnects people.
Organizational union.
Organizations.
Okay, you don't have one member tab. Okay.
And then another thing as well, with the naming of the organizations, I've been asking what that maybe to Amadota teaches me, right? Women, there's young women's manana, then there's women's manana. These ones are being prepared for marriage, others are married. But men are not talking about marriage. They're married, you're single, you whatever, you all fall under the same thing, right? This thing of constantly reminding people that no, you should fall into this box, you should fall into that box. I completely disagree with that. I think
Particularly females.
absolutely. You know, I'm all for the females.
She disturbed you.
Yes.
Yes.
Ah.
Later.
No, I was promising you something. I was going to say we actualize in a certain way disconnect people at the church, because I feel like we somehow get carried away. We think you're higher than, but we come to church to be one. So what do you mean? You know? Yeah.
I'm raising this question for you because part of what I want to argue for you is that you have the agency to redesign what you believe being young in church is. But remember, you've got a short window. You don't remain young. You are the ones who argued here that other people must leave the station. So you don't have forever to redesign. And part of that redesigning is for you to realize that it is a deposit. It is not the thing. Because taking your categories, if you meet a boy here who says to you, in 2 years from now you get married, if I follow your logic, is you get off the bus because now you are married, you must think about what to cook and what
Which
to
I agree, even if it would happen.
No, Ma'am, the point I'm getting to is that the redesigning moment is not out there. It is now. That's the redesigning moment. And that redesigning moment demands of you to focus your mind on it, rather than focus your mind on the complaints. Because we can all complain.
The simplest.
But somebody has to come up with a solution.
If you do not, especially the one who wants to imagine a different place, the young people who like the system as it is, because they are going to be vice presidents later. So if you feel that the church needs to be redesigned, you yourself need to be imagined, and that will be agent of the imagination. Otherwise, you're going to complain here and then you're gone. Oh, by the way, because you want to change it, you overstay. Because you want to change it, and then they complain about you now. And they say, these guys are not leaving the room. Why are they not leaving the room? So part of that is for you to say to yourself, and part of the redesigning is in Lombardy to argue for a trans-organizational youth experience. The Methodist Church can say there's a Wesley Guild, but it doesn't say that there's no space for any other expression of young people. I hope you hear me. There is a Wesley Guild, but it does not mean you as young people can fellowship and say, we are gathering together, not because we're an organization. We are gathering together because we want to live in conversation with one another. We want to live in space where we offer love with one another. You don't need to be a gilder to do that. You don't need to be a young woman's man to do that. We can commit ourselves as this group to say, we come here every second week, we come here and sit. We put here together our little bit of piece of meat. We put this meat here, we put this bread here, and we sit around. And by the way, we don't even need to open the scriptures for the day, because opening the scripture is a worst little thing matter than nothing. You can't start without opening the scripture. So you say to yourself, we come here and say, we are going to start by simply asking, just checking. And then you create that space for yourselves. And once you create that space for yourselves, if you're able to give yourself that opportunity, it becomes a wonderful space for rebirth. Becomes a space for the birth of new things. Where young people who are here, who are sitting there, are saying, we do get entertained with them. It doesn't bother us in them. We do get entertained with them when they beat that thing here and they dance like their parents, when they dance like their mothers and their fathers. They do entertain us. But in all honesty, that's not where we want to spend the rest of our times. Yeah. Where do we talk about poetry? When I was a younger minister with my church then, I try to make sure that every second Sunday there's a poem that is being originally written by a member of my church who was young. And so when we worship, it's part of worship, I say today we are going to have a poem. And some of them were astounding. Some of those poems hit me to the core. Some of the poems in their language, not poetics, were so powerful that some of them I quoted them in my sermons. So I use youth creativity to say, okay, the dinner was on past 23. But I've got a young child who says, I am lonely, but I'm never lost, for God is holding my hand. The same message. So part of that journey then is for you to discover, for you not to wait for somebody to give you permission. Part of adulting, part of being youth, is this beauty to say, I wait for no permission. I'm going to express who I am as best as I can be. So that's part of the challenge you face here. You cannot simply complain about how other people are giving you space. You have to create your own space. And that demands time. That demands commitment. That demands preparation. Let me give you some bad news. Not only young people are being judged in the church. Oh, mama, but judge and about
Yeah.
So no. I'm not passionate. I'm trying to say to you, don't exceptionalize yourselves. I hope you hear me. The problem is a problem of the church, not a problem of the youth. Siyahlebana besiqhawe nisisonke. Akuhlelwa wena kuba you are young. Sihlebana kuba sitheni? Siyahleba. And sometimes kama sihlebana besontweni, don't start by hlebering. Do you know how we start? We start by saying, oh, I like his hair, the hairstyle. We start positively. People say, I told you into the hairstyle, yeah, okay, but. And then somebody else says, oh, the earrings. You're going like, oh, those earrings. And then somebody else says, I can see the earrings. But it's Are you with me?
But she's not a nice person.
That's why I'm saying we even if you think they are scheduled, wait until we move.
Yo, welcome to my world.
If they are scheduled, let me tell you why. Because there are 300 set of eyes that are watching you. So this idea that we are being gossiped about because we're young people is going to make you have a victim mentality. It is the nature of society, it's the nature of people coming together that is problematic. Let me make another simple third example that I want you to engage with. Whenever I confirmed, when I used to run confirmation camps, every Saturday on the before we go at 4 o'clock, wherever we are on the camp, I would have an open mic. And in an open mic, I say to young people, ask anything you want. Just ask. Then, and then the courageous one, what is wrong with drinking alcohol? And I said, Muruti, ice cream has alcohol. Cough medication has got alcohol. What is wrong with us drinking alcohol? So that will be the conversation. The next conversation will kind of transit. And then they will say to me, especially the boys, yeah, Muruti. Corona Muruti, when there is no sex, you get mad, Muruti. Now we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about Nelson Mandela, whatever. And if he stayed 27 years out in jail without sex, therefore it means we can say 19, 20, 21, 22, 22 without sex. But then the most interesting one will come. The young girls will come, and they'll say to me, Muruti, I'm sick and tired, Mama. Mama. When I walk with a boy in the street, when the boy holds my hand, Mama wachaf, she loses it. She shouts at me. I don't understand it. And I say, oh, okay, here, that's your problem. And then she says, when I do my maths, I am now 18, Mama is 37.
Yes.
When I do my maths, Muruti,
Yes, that's late.
when I go to therefore,
Yeah.
Muruti, she was younger than me. When she got me, Muruti. And there she is, shouting at me. And then I would have to engage with them. And engage with them with this idea to ask the question, whether is it not the mother's pain, suffering, and all the things that come with making those decisions at that time? That puts her, what's the word, up. Puts the guys up. So we're in that conversation. And after hearing me all of that, then they'll say, Muruti, why doesn't she just say that?
Thank you.
Why does she?
Let's converse instead of because I feel like when most of the time how Chiku, I can't really hear.
And then let me tell you what I would also say to them. I say to them, remember that your own mother is a product of your own society.
Oh.
Where instruction, not conversation, is the way to communicate. And therefore, if you're going to engage with her, which you should, and then I'll call the mothers when the mothers are there, and I'll tell the mothers, hey, Bo Mama, your children know the mess you've made of your lives by simply mathematical calculations. Don't show your children God's love and grace by accepting your own vulnerability, rather than trying to be these strong women who now, you are not helping your children with that. So I'll say that to the parent. But I say to the young people is that you, unfortunately, because of that experience, you live in that tension. What is the tension? The tension is to able to breach your mother's limited view out of your own upbringing into your own dreaming of conversational style of living. And how then do you hold that tension together? Because unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you are now at the space of the renewal of the resetting of how young people should be experienced. And your mothers do not have that. Your fathers do not have that. So part of this journey, if I can use the metaphor of your mothers and your age group thing, part of this journey is bringing back to new possibilities. And when you want to bring back new possibilities, as a young person, remember you are venturing on the edge, I say to Abifulis and I say to myself, I'm going to report to what I said to all of you. One of the great things I needed to learn is that young people are going to mess up. But by the way, that's the nature of growing up. A child will pull this thing, and then what's going to fall? The candle is going to fall on the ground, because it's part of growing up. And therefore, the church needs to have the grace, the patience, and the ability to do that. And then on the issues you raise, I fully agree with you. I've argued for a long time ago. I can't imagine, I really can't, and I'm saying this with all the honesty I can make. I can't imagine, when I joined the guild as a 17, 18-year-old, the older people who were there, who said they were young at heart, you know what they used to do?